let's start with the first point. So read the key financial data, okay? Where we can find this important financial data for analyze a stock. Let's go in deeper into what is a very special tool that's called Investing Pro that I use an investor, okay? Usually I make not only for US stocks, but even, for example, in my case, for the Italian stock, okay? So it depends from the country in which do you want to invest, okay? In this case, we know that the US market is the biggest one. So let's start with a practical case, okay? Let's imagine that we want to understand where is a balance sheet, what is a balance sheet, where is an income statement, and what is an income statement, and the same things for the cash flow statement, okay? First of all, we need the tool, okay? So for example, let me go, please tell me in the chat if you see my screen. Now I'm going into the Investing Pro tool. So tell me in chat if you see my screen. For example, now I try to search, let's make a stock, okay? I'm choosing Apple because, for example, we know that Apple is one of the biggest stocks in the world. Okay, now I would like to learn from, okay, there's a question, what you should, okay. At the end, this kind of question I will reply later. But first of all, please tell me if you see the screen. That's the most important thing for me now. If you're able to see my screen, I'm trying to searching here the Apple screenshot. So tell me if you see the Apple, the data's all good. Thank you very much, Peter. So Apple, okay, we have the screenshot of Apple. Here we have a lot of sections, as you can see, for example, the overview. But the first thing, let's come back 1 second to the slides, okay? What we want to find: balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement. And between 5 minutes, I will explain why would be so important this kind of data, okay? So we need to search the key financial data, the three key documents. So where I can find them, I have to go here in the financial sections, okay? And you will see here a tab, the first tab on the left, income statement, okay? You can choose here by clicking into the arrow, okay? You will see income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. These are the three main documents that we will learn to use into this webinar and to the next weeks, okay? So let's start. Okay, we know now that we can find these three main documents here, okay, using Investing Pro. But let's start to understand why, as an investor, I need to learn to read a balance sheet, okay? What is a balance sheet? First of all, what is a balance sheet? Let's start with the first point. The balance sheet, very important to understand, is a snapshot of the company at a specific time, okay? For example, I'm telling this because if I am an investor and someone tells me, look, please check the balance sheet of the previous year and compare it to the balance sheet of this year, it's totally unuseful as an investor because the balance sheet is a snapshot. So for me as an investor, the main point for the balance sheet is to analyze right now the balance sheet, okay? So I need to understand the situation now of the balance sheet. And how a balance sheet works is divided in two parts, okay? The left part, as you can see here in the slides, and the right part. The main things that we want to know, and we have to know, is that the left part has to be equal to the right part, okay? As I wrote here below, you see in the left part, we have the assets. What are the assets? Is the investments and the use of the available resources that the company has, okay? So for example, cash, short-term investments, all of these things that they will check later. But it's important to understand on the left part, we have a certain amount of investment. How, what, and where the company invests his money, okay? On the left part. On the right part, we have another kind of things that are called liabilities. That is all the external resources that the company needs to find, okay? For example, the debt of the banks, the furnitures, all these things are liabilities. Because why we call them liabilities? Because they comes from external, okay? External part, the banks, the furniture, okay? All of these things are external. That's an important things to know, okay? Liabilities. Going below, even into the right part, we find the total equity, which is different from liabilities. Is always resources, okay, as the liabilities, but in this case, in the total equity, these resources comes from inside of the company. That's the main difference between the liabilities and the total equity, is that from where the sources come. That's the main point to understand, okay? Liabilities, external resources. Equity is internal resources. For example, let me give you an example of, or not, I want to make some kind of interaction with you. Someone knows, for example, is a question for you, someone knows which kind of voices we can find into the total equity. For example, tell me one voice of possible total equity. For example, let's say if someone knows which should be a potential voice that we can find into the total equity. For example, someone that want to answer into the chat, for example, that knows what we can find as investor into the total equity section. Then I will explain you, but it's just for making an interaction. Remember that this is for you, for improve your investment strategies, okay? So it's important that you work with me to understand how it works, okay? So no one wants to reply or to answer. Which kind of voice? Let me give you an example, okay, of voice that we can find in total equity section. For example, the retained earnings, okay, of a company. Every year, the company, we hope so, make earnings, okay? Every year, net earnings. Every year, a part of these earnings is paid as dividend, for example, to the investor, for the shareholders, okay? Maybe a little part of this net earnings is retained. So why we will find it into the equity section? Because it's a snapshot, okay? Let's imagine that you are a savers, okay? You earn, let's imagine, $10,000 per month, and you save every month $1,000, okay? So you put this into a saving account, okay? This is, after 2 months, you will have $2,000 in your saving account. Is a snapshot, is a photo, okay? Is a picture of the situation in that specific moment, okay? And for the company, it's the same. The retained earnings is the same thinking, okay? Let's start to learn and to think as an investor, okay? There's no other way for invest correctly, okay? So the important things to understand on the balance sheet is that the left part has to be equal to the right part. So the asset should be equal to the liabilities plus the total equity, okay? And we can see, if we, let's come back just 1 second into the Investing Pro tool. Here you see the same things, okay? I'm going to the balance sheet. Here you see the same picture, but in a slightly different way, because you start from the top, okay? You have all the assets, as you can see, no? You see all the sum of these singular voices. At the end, you have the total asset, as you can see here. The total asset in the slide is the left part, okay? It's another way to show the picture, but it's the same concept, okay? Basically. And going deeper, you see, for example, here you have the total liabilities, okay? So the total liabilities, this part. And last but not least, you will see the total equity, okay? Where is the total equity? Here, the right part, below. The sum of liabilities and total equities needs to be equal to the total of assets. Let's try to search and confirm, okay? We have, for Apple, total liabilities and equity. How much they worth? 352 billions, okay? More or less. And we need to find that this number is equal to the total asset, okay? So let's go in above to the total asset, okay? And we will find the exact amount that we saw below, 352, more or less, billions for Apple, okay? Left part should be equal to the right part. That's main things to understand. Let me check if there's something. Yes, cash, okay. Okay, perfect. Cash is another example, but for the asset, okay? Because, for example, Adrian spoke about assets, okay? For example, the cash, we find cash into the asset part, okay? Let's check again. If we see in this different mode, cash and equivalents, we find it into the asset part, okay? Is a component with other kind of components of the asset part, okay? Left side of the balance sheet. The balance sheet is a snapshot. So we want to analyze the balance sheet for this moment, now, okay? We want to analyze, for example, for Apple, the last balance sheet of the last year, okay? That's the main thing. I'm using Investing Pro. You can have the 35% discount off on Investing Pro. You will have here the discount. I hope that you enjoy the webinar, and we will see the next time you will be pro subscribers for the next time.